Welcome everybody to our CCNN panel meeting. Shall we go around the table and introduce ourselves? I'll start with myself. I'm Councillor Sarah Keaton, Chair, and
Ian Davis, Development Manager within Planning and City Regeneration.
Thank you.
Councillor David Hopkins, Cabinet Member for Corporate Services and Performance.
Tom Price, I'm the Divisional Environmental Health Officer for Pollution Control and Private Sector Housing.
Thank you.
And my name is Michael Locke and I'm the Councillor for Scrutiny.
Do you want to introduce yourselves online? Should we start with Liz? Can we do the officers online first, please?
I'm Catherine Jones. I'm one of the planning ecologists for the council.
I'm Deb Hill and I'm the Nature Conservation Team Leader with Swansea Council.
Bridget, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Bridget Rowlands. I'm Councillor for the Clydach ward.
Thank you. Okay. Apologies. We've got two from Joe Hale and Wendy Fitzgerald, but she might be late. So any others? No?
Can I also give
Okay.
apology for Will Thomas, please, Councillor Will Thomas?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, can I also come in and say, look, I've got a doctor's appointment, so I will need to leave a bit early. I'd like to put that on record. I will have to leave the meeting earlier than expected.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, David.
Just to advise that Carol Morgan is on her way, the Head of Service as well for Housing and Public Health. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's just hope the traffic isn't too bad and people get here on time, the ones that are still out. Disclosures. If there's any disclosures, if there's any, Liz will email out template of completion. I don't think there is there? No? Okay, thank you. Prohibition of whipped votes and declaration of party whips. Any comments? Nope. Okay. Minutes of previous meeting from the 4th of July. It's only 2 pages. It should not be 1, 2. Any problems? Has everybody seen them? Okay. So can we just say is agreed and accurate record? Agreed? Anyone? Right. Okay. Public question time, but I don't think we've had any questions, have we? So no. So moving on at breakneck speed. Water quality management and pollution control. Right, sorry, we're changing it round, even after doing notes. Planning enforcement, nature and biodiversity. Thank you. David, do you want to speak?
Yeah, obviously I've got nothing to add to the report. I know we've got Deb Hill and we've got Ian on in the room. I just want to say it's I think this highlights it's everybody's business and it's important that we all know how to report and how to encourage biodiversity and natural beauty. So nothing to add to the report, but hand over to officers.
It's Ian now, is it? Yeah. Ian, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sharing the report on screen. I'm not going to go through word for word, but I'll give a summary of the content of the report. The report is there to provide an overview of how the planning system seeks to incorporate nature and biodiversity into the decision-making process. And as background, obviously, planning decisions generally have to be taken in line with planning policy unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And in terms of planning policy, there's both national and local planning policy. National planning policy set out by the Welsh Government is contained in Future Wales, the National Plan, and also Planning Policy Wales. And amongst the purposes of that plan is to set a strategy for addressing key national priorities through the planning system. This includes sustaining and developing a vibrant economy, achieving decarbonisation and climate resilience, and developing strong ecosystems and improving the health and well-being of our communities. That's expanded upon in Planning Policy Wales, that sets out land use policies, and then the council has its own planning policy, which is set out in the local development plan, and they set out a clear planning framework to address key issues facing the county. The council's planning policies are also supplemented by supplementary planning guidance. So specifically in terms of nature and biodiversity, there is a requirement in Future Wales that action is taken towards securing the maintenance and enhancement of biodiversity to provide a net benefit, to ensure the resilience of ecosystems and green infrastructure assets. And then within our own local development plan, the LDP, there are policies aimed at meeting those same objectives. So in terms of the planning application process, when applications are submitted, we will consult with our ecologists. They provide advice on the schemes, and through all applications, we will look to secure an enhancement to biodiversity. So we will look at what the proposal involves, how does that affect existing sort of ecological interests, what steps need to be taken to ensure those interests are protected, and what steps can be taken to enhance the ecology and biodiversity of an area. On some applications, there will be ecological enhancement measures shown on the schemes, and where they are considered acceptable, we will condition a planning permission that the development has to be undertaken in accordance with those details. If enhancements are not shown, we will put a condition on any planning permission that requires details of enhancements to be submitted before development takes place. And then that condition will also require whatever works are approved under that condition to be undertaken within set timescales. To help developers understand the requirements, obviously we have the policy, as I mentioned, in the LDP, but we've also produced supplementary planning guidance, biodiversity and development. So that aligns with the council's duties under Section 6 of the Environment Wales Act and the Resilient Wales Goal of the Future Generations Act. And it helps developers understand, as I say, what is required at each stage of the development management process. So it provides a framework to demonstrate how proposals have responded to a robust ecological understanding of the site, and that appropriate ecological mitigation, compensation, enhancement and aftercare will be provided. So that SPG is available on the public website, and what we would expect is developers to look at that when they're formulating their proposals, to help them understand what is needed and what their scheme should show. We have provided training or advice to developers. We've had meetings with them, and we've sent out sort of mail shots to them to say, look, we produced this SPG. You need to look at it when you're submitting schemes, and hopefully developers and planning agents are taking on board the information contained in that information. In addition to the SPG, we provide advice on our website. These include sustainable drainage systems and biodiversity. SUDS is something which has been introduced over the last few years, and part of the SUDS standard is to demonstrate how biodiversity is being considered through those proposals. Biodiversity enhancements and ecological survey and assessment processes are outlined. There's information on protected species and licensing needed from NRW when development could affect those protected species. And there's natural environment legislation and policy. So all these sort of links are provided on our website to help developers understand what's required. When a condition is attached to a planning permission, the onus on complying with that condition rests with the developer. That applies to every condition. It's not just biodiversity. And if a development is undertaken that doesn't accord with the planning conditions, then that could constitute a breach of planning control. One of the issues I know which has been raised as concern is how we monitor these conditions. As I say, it's the developer's responsibility to comply. If we receive a complaint that a condition is being breached, we will investigate through the enforcement officers. But we are very much a reactive service. We have difficulty being proactive because the resources available to the department mainly. There's no requirement for developers to notify us when they start their development, other than for major developments, which are only a small percentage of the applications we receive. So a lot of the time developments may be taking place and we have no knowledge that they've started. So there's no legislative requirement to notify us. So there's two issues really. One, we're not always aware when development starts, and two, we don't have the resources to proactively monitor every development that takes place. And we have to bear in mind, if planning permission is granted, there's 5 years in which to start the development. Once it's started, there's no time limit on completion. We deal with around about 2,500 applications a year. So at any one time, there's a lot of applications that could be implemented. And in theory, to proactively monitor, you'd have to be looking at every site to see what stage of the development, the works are. With conditions specifically in relation to biodiversity, it's usually at the end of the development that the measures for enhancement have to be put in place. And as there's no time limit to complete the development, it's not easy to assess at what point you will need to visit a site to check if the compliance has been undertaken. There are powers available. If we are aware of a breach, we can serve breach condition notices requiring work to be done. But as I say, those powers can only be exercised really if we know that there is a breach of planning control, and that is the difficulty for our team is finding out when or if a breach has occurred. That's really a summary of how the planning process deals with it. So it's set out in policy, it's implemented through planning applications, and that achieves, or the process is intended to achieve the aims of Welsh Government and also the Council's planning policy. The main issue for me is developers. Developers, we're trying to make them aware. We've provided information to ensure that they understand what's required. And a continued awareness, raising and engagement with the applicants and developers and the wider public, because the wider public can play a role in enforcement. They could notify us if they're aware of any breaches. That could be private individuals, it could be community councils, local groups. But if they understand what's required, it helps in delivering better nature recovery.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, any questions? Anyone got any questions for Ian? No? I have to say, it feels like what you're saying is we haven't got enough teeth legislatively to chase them, and definitely no resources.
If I come in there, to put it in context, what we must realise that we are proactive when somebody do report something, but we're not in a position to police everything. And I think Joe Public or the public have got a very important role to play going forward. And that's not just planning, that's including crime. Even police officers don't look for crime at the moment, they normally get reported. So where I am on this, I think is raising public awareness of the issue so that they can police it and work with us. And personally, I think that is probably the best way forward that we could do. So make sure we got the comms, the publicity to ensure that that they can play that important role. So it's not all about what we can do, it's working with members of the public and of course on other partners that might be along the like Natural Resources Wales or others.
Thank you, David. Sorry, did someone want to speak? Oh, Bridget?
Yeah, can I? Yes, just going on from what Councillor Hopkins said, really. Would it be worth, and I think it's a very good idea, and to get something out on social media, on our social media page, just giving the contact details for reporting these things?
Yeah, I'll talk to the comms team to see what we can do proactively, because I think it's important we do play a proactive role in that. So yeah, we'll definitely be contacting the if you want to put down as a recommendation, more than happy to do so. But I will give that commitment that I will be contacting the comms team to work very closely in these issues.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bridget. That's a good idea. Okay. Let's go on to water quality management and pollution control. Tom? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
could
Jake.
I just come in to introduce it? It's do fall within my criteria again of responsibilities. It seems, only like yesterday we were sitting in this room talking exactly the issue, and it was 11 months ago, actually, 12 months ago, where we actually were talking about this water quality, particularly around the bays, and it was a very emotive subject then, and I'm sure it will be now. But I've got nothing to add. As I say, I know that Hamish from Natural Resources Wales isn't with us, but I believe his colleague is at this particular time, or is trying to join us at this particular time. The problem we got is Natural Resources Wales play a huge part of this. We work very closely with them in partnership, but they are the key player on the majority of water sampling around the bay. But as I say, in that true partnership with ourselves and Tom. So, Tom, I don't know whether you can take us through any part of it. It's going to be quite difficult at this point, I would have guessed, without the key partner with us.
Thank you, Councillor. Morning, Chair. I've contacted Sarah Bennett from NRW. She's online to see whether she can join early. Unfortunately, Hamish Osborne is has a prior appointment, but is free later, potentially after 11. But what I can do is quickly, I've shared the report on the screen for those online as well. The initial intention is not to read through the report. It's there for information purposes for you, and it's very similar to previous committees that we've attended. But just to give you the headline sort of information from it, we as the council, we are responsible for the beach as a beach manager, and primarily of importance here is for Swansea Bay. There's a designated sampling point for bathing water at Swansea Bay that Natural Resources Wales monitor and sample. And that denotes the bathing quality, the bathing classification for that beach, as well as for beaches such as Bracelet Bay, Lime Slade, Langland, Caswell, Oxwich, Portynan, etc. So last year for 2022, Swansea Bay was a good water quality, Caswell, Langland, excellent water quality, where the blue flag beaches are. So in section 1.1, there's a link there to the NRW website, which you can follow and will take you through and explain water classification, the results, historic results, etc. As it stands for this season, the bathing season literally finished at the end of September. So it's still early days for us to know what the classification will be for 2023. But normally we find out towards the end of November, once all the analysis is sorted and the reports are signed off. So, as I say, we sample, but as the beach owner for Swansea Bay, back in 2011, as part of an EU Interreg funded project, we essentially did all the background work to develop the bathing water model, which forecasts water quality. So out on the road by the old Slipbridge stanchion, you'll see the sign, and that denotes the forecast for good or poor water quality, or if no prediction is available. That is also then put out via social media. And the main change this year, unfortunately, is the change in Twitter to X, and our robot process, which is an automation process to publish every hour the results, has been barred. And we're still trying to get that sorted. So we've arranged a workaround this year. We have a bespoke website that was created, which displays the hourly, between 8 and 8 each day, the hourly forecast for Swansea Bay. And that's also, link is shared via the Twitter feed. If anybody wants to see it, they can click on it and it'll take them straight to our updated version for the data. So we continue to monitor then Broughton and Rosilly as well, and we supply that data to NRW as well for their purposes. And those are two beaches that we've sampled over the last 30 years. So we keep that ongoing because we know that they're heavily touristed beaches, and we get inputs from the estuary for runoff, for example. So we continue monitoring that. The rest of the work that we do is response to incidents. as the report said, so we can get fuel oil spills that could get into the water, spills on land that could affect water quality, drinking water, for example, sewage issues, misconnection issues with drainage, and issues with construction sites that could all impact upon water quality. Again, we do link and work with NRW, internet. And then lastly, the big area for us is the River Towy. So since the installation of the impoundment, the barrage, we are responsible for managing and maintaining the aeration kit that's in the river. That was upgraded last year, so we've increased the number of aerating devices there. And effectively through the summer, through the warm period, we are forcing fine bubbles of air into the water column to help mix the water. As the tide comes over the barrage, it almost works as it does work as a wedge of salt saline water that drives up the river. And if we don't encourage and engage the mixing, that will affect water quality and also for the actual aquatic environment and the organisms there. So we maintain that. We also do the private drinking supplies. Predominantly, it's the commercial or shared supplies that we are required to risk assess and sample on a routine basis. But the single domestic supply, if an individual comes to us, then we will carry out that work. There's no requirement for us to do it as fact. And the last two within the report, swimming pools, we monitor the council pools, the schools, etc., for water quality to ensure that they're independently up to standard, to make sure the pool operators are treating in the right way, obviously with regular use. And finally, again, this year, we've been attending Welsh Government's Drought Liaison Group, not only because of Swansea, but also as representatives of Wales, the local authorities in Wales, because at the start of the year, if you cast your mind back when we had sun, there were early indications that we might enter into a drought status, which sort of curtailed as the season went on. We did go into a warning sort of period, but that was scaled down as the rains kicked in. But we are then on board liaising with Welsh Government, with the water companies, with Natural Resources Wales, to keep on top and plan for any potential insufficiencies, primarily with private supplies for us. Hasn't happened in the last few years in Swansea, but we're making sure our plans are in place. And that is predominantly it. I can see, looking at the teams, that Hamish has actually joined. So thank you, Hamish. Good morning. And Hamish certainly will be able to respond on behalf of NRW to any questions that are raised.
Morning.
Thank you, Tom. Morning, Hamish.
Hi.
Would you like to jump in to respond to any questions?
If you've got any questions, yeah, I haven't heard what's just been
No,
presented
of
by Tom,
course.
but
Yes.
I'm here to answer questions. I think Sarah from my team is available. She'll be joining a second as well. So yeah, I can respond to questions. Yeah.
Has anyone online or anyone here got any questions? No? I've got a question, bit of left of field for you, Hamish.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot over the summer about raising water temperatures. Does that make it more likely to have more problems with bacteria in the seawater?
That's a very good question, to which I haven't got an answer. I don't know the answer to that. It's potentially an issue, but I'm not sure that it will be an issue that overrides some of the other things that we've got to deal with. So if one of the biggest determinants of how bacteria survive in the water, we have found in Swansea, and it seems to be replicated elsewhere, is how sunny it is. So if the warm water is associated with sunny weather, then I suspect that the sunniness of it would overcome any changes in survival due to water temperature changes. But it's something that definitely would warrant some investigations in the future, probably by the scientific community, I would expect.
Yeah, probably. Thank you for that. I can see Wendy joined us, and Mary. Good morning. Would you like to ask any questions?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
No.
Can I ask something?
Bridget?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just wondered what, with regards to sewerage discharge, what interaction is there with Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water between the council and NRW? You know, what is the liaison there? How much goes on? And then compared to other parts of the UK, how are we performing?
Okay, so there's a lot of interaction between NRW and Cymru Welsh Water on sewer discharges. So most of the sewers in the area will have overflows at some in some locations, and those overflows are something that have been there for a long time, and they're permitted by us, and the numbers of times they're allowed to spill will depend on the context. So if it's into a bathing water, for example, there's a very tight control over how many times they can spill. If it's into shellfish water, there's a similar tight control over that. So all of the sewer overflows now have, well, 99% of them have got monitoring on them to tell how often they spill. So we are in liaison with Welsh Water over the numbers of spills and the duration of the spills, with the aim of reducing them as far as is possible. So it's an ongoing discussion, and where there are problems, we will take some kind of action, be it corrective action or sometimes enforcement action, to try and bring them back into line with what the numbers of spills that they should be having. So it's something that we're in constant communication with them on. How we compare to other areas? Do you mean other areas in Wales or other areas in the UK?
Well, both actually.
I mean, I've probably explained to this committee in the past, and I'm sure that Tom has been over this. Years ago, we know that Swansea Bay was struggling in terms of water quality. When the now bathing water regulations, bathing water directive was brought in, the latest iteration, the revised bathing water directive we used to call it, we knew that Swansea would struggle to meet the requirements. So a lot of work was done looking at where the sewer overflows are and how they were performing, and we found lots of deficiencies, and a lot of those have been corrected. So Swansea Bay itself, things have improved, and is doing relatively well. We still have issues that we're dealing with, for example, in the Tower, where we're asking Cymru to look at the numbers of spills on some of their assets, asking for them to look into whether those should be prioritised for more work under the AMP programme, the Asset Management Programme, where they get money effectively released to them via the regulator, the financial regulator, Ofwat, to improve them. So we have concerns over some of those, and we're working with them to improve them. Around the Gower Coast, which is where the majority of our bathing waters are, we don't have many potential spillers. We have a handful of them. Again, we're working with them on some of those. So I wouldn't say that we are where we want to be, but in comparison to some of the things that you'll have seen on the news over the last year or two, because I know this has been a very, very topical issue, I wouldn't say that we don't have the same level of problems that people sometimes expect us to have. But we do still have concerns in certain locations, and we are working on these issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a question here from Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald. Wendy, would you like to ask it? She's not here, is she? Oh, Wendy's not here. Okay. Well, I'll ask it then for Wendy. The new suburban housing developments inevitably damage wildlife habitats and can also create pollution. What measures should be taken by the council to ensure that surface water drainage solutions do not pollute existing local environmental amenities, such as ponds and watercourses?
Okay, so go on. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say some background there. Wendy is concerned because there's been a development in her area, and there's been poorly handled suds that the water's been leaking into a pond nearby, from what I gather.
Yeah, okay, so from NRW's perspective, there are two sides to this equation. One of them is coming up with a sustainable strategy for dealing with surface water on any site when the site is finished and constructed, and that's why we have got the SUDS legislation, and that's a big step forward. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for going beyond the bare minimum, including green infrastructure into the design of any development. And we would urge developers, and as far as is possible, the council to encourage developers to put this into their plans. The other side that we are particularly worried about is the construction phase. And it's true to say that many of the large construction projects in Swansea put quite a lot of pressure on the local watercourses during the construction phase. We do get silty water leaving site in an uncontrolled manner, causing they're not usually big severe pollutions. They're not usually the ones where we have to mobilize the whole of NRW and look at large scale enforcement action. They're not those sort of things. It's more death by a thousand cuts where we get repeated small pollutions. I think I know the development she's talking about, and we have experienced problems there, and we have been working as far as is possible with the developer and their contractors to reduce those problems, and we've had some success. Negotiations are ongoing. We have sent them warning letters in response to some of those pollution incidents. But what the council could do is, in the planning process, make sure that the pollution prevention provisions in the construction environmental management plan are as good and as tight as they can be. We liaise with the council on those through our development control statutory consultee role. But the important thing is to make sure that they have a really good plan, and that when they go in to start the construction, that they think very carefully about the impact on the local watercourses, because the minute they start stripping soil and the minute it rains on the stripped soil, it will cause silt pollution. The potential for silt pollution, it will cause silt to run off in any runoff water, and that water needs to be dealt with. And it is a concern, and it is something that we would like an improvement from the industry on.
Okay, thank you. Right. What are we doing? Oh, wait. Hi, Mary. Mary, do you want to speak?
Sorry, the sun's shining so brightly, I couldn't find my cursor. Yes, I don't know if you covered this because I apologise, I was late, I was at another meeting. There's been a lot in the press about leakages and the amount of time to repair them. If there's a major leak, saying in the main itself, how long is your response time, and how long is it before you want to get it under control? Because recently in my own area, we've had 2 leaks where they've had to be attended to, but the water just seemed to be gushing down the road, and nobody seemed to be there. Thank you.
So this is what from the clean water main you're referring to. Yeah. That's not something that we have direct control over. That's something that the water companies are responsible for controlling leakage and reporting that to Ofwat. So we don't directly control it. We are interested in the leaks, obviously, because any increase in water leakage leads to more abstraction. Also, some of the leaks do cause potential pollution problems where they wash silt into the river, or where there's a large discharge from a water main with lots of chlorine in it. We do worry about that. So it's not something we have direct control of or directly regulate. So I can't give you a definitive answer on that, I'm afraid. It's something probably to address to Welsh Water directly.
Okay. All right with that, Mary? Thank you. Shall we go on to the item 9, work programme 2023 to 24? Any comments? No. No. Okay, well, thank you for that. The next meeting is on the 28th of November at 10 a.m. The meeting will be online. Items to be discussed, environmental tourism. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. Bye. Right, do you want to bring the meeting to a close? Thanks.